Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edward Hertzman, founder and president of Sourcing Journal and Rivet, and I'd like to thank the Transformers Foundation for inviting me to host today's panel conversation. Last year, the foundation released their first report about ending unethical behavior in the denim industry. And today, on World Cotton Day, they're following up that report with a new study on misinformation in the cotton industry. Joining me is Andrew Olah. Andrew, would you like to give a brief introduction on yourself?
I'm Andrew Olah. I'm our textile company, Olah Incorporated, is 62 years old. I'm the founder of Kingpin Show, and 2 years ago, we founded the Transformers Foundation.
And Elizabeth?
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Cline. I'm a journalist and the author of 2 books on fashion, sustainability, and labor rights. The first was called Overdress. My follow-up was called The Conscious Closet. And I'm here today as the writer on this wonderful new report by the Transformers Foundation.
And last but not least,
Hi, thanks everybody. I'm Marzia and I'm the founder of Cotton Diaries, and I'm also the intelligence director of Transformers Foundation.
So before we get into this conversation around cotton, I like to take a step back because in reading this report, I felt that this was as much about the misinformation being perpetuated about the fashion industry as it is about the incorrect data about cotton itself. Elizabeth, can you just take me through this a little bit? Why is misinformation in the fashion industry an issue that's getting so much attention? Why does it matter? And why did you guys come together and decide to focus a whole, comprehensive report on this?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak personally. When the Transformers Foundation approached me, I was aware that fashion had a misinformation problem. I think a lot of us remember when the claim that fashion is the second most polluting industry, that was debunked in, I think, 2017, and then again by the New York Times in 2018. And it kind of sparked a conversation in the industry about why bad data is circulating. So I had an understanding that there was an issue, but it was really through researching this report, and because of the research in particular that Marzia unearthed, that we started to realize as we were putting this paper together that the misinformation problem in fashion, first of all, it's serious. Like all of the claims that we looked at in the cotton industry, all of the most widely circulated claims about cotton are false or misleading. And I don't know if that's true about other fibers, but potentially, we know that there are many other claims circulated about fashion that are inaccurate. And then the second thing that we really started to dig into was how fashion misinformation is not isolated from society's wider disinformation disorder, information disorder, if you will. It is part of the same exact process of misinformation that is undermining our democracies, our political, our elections, our faith in institutions. And that's really why we have to take it seriously, because you can't just say, oh, sharing a factoid about the cotton industry that's false or misleading is not a big deal, because it's actually fueling the same process that's unraveling society at large.
So I guess the question is, where is this misinformation coming from?
Well, I think, when we did this research, Eddie, we found that it comes from basically almost everybody is complicit in this misinformation issue, and for different reasons. Journalists, I might let Elizabeth touch on journalists and possibly yourself, but from advocacy, NGOs, so civil societies, citizens, everybody is involved. And I can tell that I probably have been complicit in the past in sharing some misinformation because I didn't really understand the depth and the problem about not sharing accurate data and accurate claims. And now I think I look at it very differently when I share something, and I think it informs better and deeper work. So I think, as I said, everybody is complicit. I don't know, Elizabeth, if you want to touch on the journalist side.
I think everyone is complicit, but I do think it's important to just lift up that, of course, why is this happening now? It's because of social media and digital tools. Misinformation, as the report demonstrates, does not often originate on social media. It's sometimes coming from outdated reports from NGOs. It can come from journalists, but it's on social media that it quickly spreads, right? And then once it's out there, it's very, very difficult to retract. And we also really looked in the paper at that pressure that, as a journalist, I know I felt to just churn out content, not really make sure that you're looking for a primary source. And just over time, standards have eroded, and it started to just infect the culture. And it's happened in fashion too, where we're all kind of just trading misinformation, and no one's really just stopping and say, okay, we have to collectively come together and commit to not doing this anymore.
I think you're 100% right that social media is certainly accelerating the spread of this misinformation. But do you also think the pressure to make some of the marketing claims, or everyone has these 2030 pledges or 2025 pledges, that they're actually trying to find data points to benefit their marketing cases? Let's find the lowest common denominator and then try to create a story that says that we're so much better than that. And then they're not really trying to challenge that, they're trying to use it to their benefit. I don't know, Elizabeth, do you want to comment? Or
I mean, I completely agree with that, right? Like, I know that we say in the report that many of us have personally benefited in some way from using misinformation, because it's the way to get followers, it's the way to get readers, it's the way to get customers. So that's one of the reasons why we really just make this argument that we have to take it more seriously. Because if you think that society is gaining from this, you're just going to continue to do it, no matter what kind of institution you're representing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree. And we fall into an ill intent in this misinformation disorder, because we fall into greenwashing with some of these claims, because we compare, I say, and like marketing teams often compare two products that are not comparable, or they cherry pick the most shocking statistic around, how many liters of water cotton uses, to compare with a product that may not contain cotton. And so that's for us is very problematic for us and for all the anti-greenwashing legislation that is coming up.
Why should we trust this report that you guys put together versus anyone else's? I mean,
as a start, we partnered with ICAC, which is Andrew.
ICAC is the International Cotton Advisory Committee, who has been around since 1939 and who collect data for all cotton growing nations. The data is supplied by national agriculture departments, so that whatever country we're talking about that grows cotton, their department gives ICAC that data. So ICAC has no interest and no mandate, no goal to do anything but supply statistics. So we thought that they would be a very good place for us to work with to get our statistics. But in addition to that, we did a lot. They've been wonderful in helping us with this report, because they thought it was good for us to do this report. But in the meantime, there was also a lot of people interviewed.
Yeah, and what we tried to do is when we selected a sample of people that we would interview, we did over 30 stakeholders interviews, reviewed
30?
Yeah, reviewed over 40 industry, NGOs, and peer-reviewed papers. We reviewed over 50 media articles and over 100 social media posts and mixed media content. But back to the point of the stakeholders, when we decided who to contact, we didn't cherry pick only one opinion or the other, one stand or the other of these cotton debate. We tried to really represent a broad range of stakeholders, between NGOs that are advocating for organic, to the Cotton Inc. as one example of an industry association that we contacted. And we tried to really get the opinion of people that have technical knowledge in the agronomy sector over the fashion sector. And I think that's where we started. And then obviously, because we advocate for everybody to fact check their claims, so what we did is have a third-party independent fact checker that is not associated to any industry that we're working with. And also, obviously, having Elizabeth on board was really helpful to balance all the opinions. So that's what we put in place in order to clear out any bias that we could have, but obviously.
So I want to ask you about that. Elizabeth, you and I were having an offline conversation one day, and you used this term. I think it was like society's misinformation disorder. I don't know if you came up with that, but if you didn't, I'm going to give you credit for it because I think it's great. So of all the society's misinformation disorders, or all the problems that are out there, to back to you, Andrew, why did you focus this report on cotton? You could have picked 10,000 different things in the fashion industry. Why is cotton?
You're asking me?
Yes, you're the only Andrew on the call. Yeah.
All right. So if you're asking this, Andrew, the answer is that cotton is the major component of most genes. And it's probably the subject which is one of the largest spreaders. The industry has so much information out there that's incorrect. It's mind-blowing. I can tell you that certain weekends, I would just do nothing but troll the internet looking for information on cotton and just find one site after the other site, completely repeating the same things over and over again that aren't true.
Okay, we're going to have a separate conversation about your social life, but we don't have time for that. And how you're spending your free time. But so, okay, we could have a whole conversation on society's misinformation disorder. And I think Elizabeth makes a great point. This is really what's causing a lot of political divide today. And it's causing a lot of problems in society. But let's dig into the actual report for a second and some of the myths that you guys are trying to debunk here. One of them is that it takes 20,000 liters of water to make a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. Is this correct? Where did this come from? What is the right number? We see this all over the place.
Yeah, no, we're burying the lead here. No, that is not correct. As far as we can tell, that statistic originates from a report that's over 20 years old. So one of the takeaways from the report is encouraging people not to use obsolete data, especially if you're describing farming, which changes honestly on a year-to-year basis based on things like climate and rainfall. Farming practices are constantly evolving. You should not be using data that is 20 years old. I think in the paper we ended up recommending seeking data that's 5 years or more recently than that. And if it's older than that, using it with a disclaimer. So the accurate data, and I always have to write this down on a Post-it note to remember it. So the original claim, 20,000 liters of water to create 1 kilogram of cotton. The accurate claim as of 2020, 1,931 liters of irrigated water and 6,003 liters of rainwater. And we actually were not able to find a current credible statistic that combined the two, irrigated and rain-fed, which we can get more into. But as you can see, the current accurate statistics are really different than what is so often cited.
That's very interesting. And I'm sure having read the report, I know you go into great detail on this, but let's go to one of the other big bullets. I know this is another myth that is all over, is about organic cotton and how it consumes 91% less water than conventional cotton. Is this correct?
Well, I can take on that one. It is not correct. We have a methodology by which we rank the claims from red to gold standard, and this falls in the orange one because it is actually not right in the modern context. It's highly contested, and it actually comes from two LCAs that are comparisons that is not a comparison that is not peer reviewed. So these claim there is no accurate claim about water savings on organic versus conventional that is critically reviewed at this current time, or we weren't able to find it. And this claim actually comes from a summary of findings report by Textile Exchange that was based on the LCA study that they did in 2014, and then compared this LCA study with another LCA of cotton ink of 2012. But the problem is that the samples of these two LCAs were completely different. One sample was taking largely rain-fed fields versus their cotton ink LCA that was having a way broader range of samples between irrigated farms and non-irrigated farms. So you can see how the water saving came about, but it is highly contested in this space and actually used by many brands can fall under greenwashing by the guidance that are out, especially in the UK and France. One good thing to note is that we work with Textile Exchange and we've interviewed them, and they are taking that claim off and they are correcting it in their forthcoming website. And so that was a really, I think, a good example of working together and to correct claims. And we look forward to see it coming online and see what the communication will be.
So talking about solutions, obviously one step is what you guys did as a foundation is to go out there, take the time and to find the answers and collect the right data. Is it as simple as contacting organizations, trying to find places where the misinformation exists, having them swap it out? Is that too convenient? Is it going to be overlooked? How do you take this now, and how do we get the industry to understand and embrace it, but also the consumers to understand it? I mean, this has been 20 plus years in the making of this information spreading around. How do we now fix these myths that have been widespread and believed for so long?
I mean, I can start. I think that one of the reasons why we wrote this paper is to provide people with an accessible go-to place to find one credible data that they can use in place of misinformation, as well as to find a deeper level of understanding about the cotton industry. Like, this really is like an all-in-one resource. The paper was written with the average industry person in mind. So you do know what to do next, right? That was kind of the entire point of the project. But I'll add to that one thing that we really noticed was like how much power journalists and NGOs have to and brands to create misinformation, but that also means that we have a lot of power to start to correct this problem. And that really does start with today using the claims that are in this paper and the takeaways that are in this paper. Even though it may be more shocking or sexy to say cotton uses 20,000 liters per kilogram, telling your staff there at Sourcing Journal, like, no, here is the credible data that we're using. Anytime this comes up, anytime you see it come across your desk, you see a writer file a story that has this information, committing to making sure that those claims are corrected is a place that journalists can start for sure.
Well, what about on the other side of this is, as journalists, how do both of you feel about if you go to a website or you're in a retail store and you see a brand, promoting something, waterless denim, 98% less denim, and you see these claims and it's wrong. I mean, Andrew, you probably go crazy. You walk your show and you see all these claims. I'm not going to call out people that are right or wrong or indifferent, but is it our responsibility as media outlets to start going one by one and calling these individuals out? I mean,
if somebody has a claim, there has to be science behind it. There has to be third-party, peer approval. So, for example, sometimes companies come to us at our foundation and say they have a claim. Do we agree? And we say we don't. They say they have a claim, and we say we don't agree with that claim. We question the claim. Now, they can still proceed. In some cases they do, or they can repackage it and say it a different way. I think that the responsibility is for anyone reporting from the media's point of view is to make a note that this is something that someone else says. And if it's backed up, to provide the information of who backed it up and under what conditions it was backed up. Until we have industry guidelines, that's where it is. people who have any cotton claims that they want to use can go to us at any time and find out if their claims are true or not. And hopefully over the years, we can do that. The industry will do that in other areas, chemistry, washing, whatever. Which is the start. It's just a start of a process.
But I would like to build on that, Andrew, because the cotton industry it's over 20% of all fiber production. Right. So if journalists and NGOs understand this industry and understand what the current credible information is about cotton, we actually have made significant progress on this issue, right? Like cotton is a huge part of the fashion industry. So I would say that this isn't just a start, that if people can come together around, what is reality in the cotton sector, that we've made pretty significant progress on this problem.
And we're hoping to have the different programs, identity programs, agree with our document and validate our document. So that's another step that we'd like to do when it comes out, is to go one by one to different organizations and ask them to ratify or validate what we've done. And hopefully we can have an industry consensus or a large consensus so that people can believe us, not just us, but they believe all the different organizations that see eye to eye with us.
Yeah, and what I'd add, I think, to all that you said is that we have a problem of data literacy within any team, whether it's media, NGOs, or brands. And so we need to work together in order to increase data literacy and technical expertise. And so cotton is just a subject that we touched, but this is like something that is super key for misinformation not to spread and not to even start. What we call it pre-bunking the myths rather than prevention over the cure. And I think another point is that we are doing 2 webinars with 2 exercises. One is on fact checking, so we're going through with a fact checker, and so we can enable these data literacy to spark and start. We're going to go and do an exercise with a fact checker, and then we're going to do also an exercise on greenwashing, anti-greenwashing legislation, and actually as a citizen, which bodies you can go to claim that a data point is incorrect, or you're feeling that you've been sold something that is misleading. So there are things in place that we can do, both as citizens, brands, civil societies, NGOs, anyone. So we have a full list of recommendations, but I think these are the key starting points.
There's an example I use, and I don't want to name the brand, but I remember about 6 or 7 years ago, I got called to source for a company. It's a very popular contemporary brand, and they are recycled polyester and organic cotton. And I asked them, okay, do you have any transaction certificates? They didn't understand what that was. And then I said, okay, well, where are you making the goods? They said, well, we work with an agent in Hong Kong. I said, okay, well, what factories? We don't know. This is the problem. So I don't think that they intentionally sought out to probably make garments that didn't have the actual organic cotton in there or the recycled polyester, but it was started by non-industry people. They just wanted to really get, they were early in the game. It was being bought by retailers that are major retailers, and they were promoting this on the floor. Again, I think it's how do you stop that? If you go to a factory and say, put organic cotton in there, you don't know what you're getting at the end of the day. Now, we can have a whole conversation on traceability, transaction certificates, whatever, but how much of this, again, is just negligence, people not understanding how to properly trace and ask the right questions.
Part of the problem is, how complex the supply chain is. But the problem that and that it's brands often that are communicating about an issue they may not understand. We even had a stakeholder in the paper that said as much. Fashion is dominated by creatives, designers, people who are extraordinarily talented, but maybe don't understand a cotton farm. We're trying to get people past that, and even past the finger pointing of saying, oh my God, you shared misinformation, how could you? And just getting to this point where we say this is a problem, we all agree this is a problem, and we're going to commit together as an industry to move past it. And this paper is packed with credible data that people can use in place of misinformation. So, you know, there's not really an excuse, hopefully, because there's this place now that people can go to find good information. Yeah.
Where can people go to find this report that came out today?
Secret. It's a secret. We're not going to tell you.
Well, on our webpage, www.transformersfoundation.org.
I know we're pretty much out of time, but I just wanted to give each you an opportunity for, you know, final thoughts, 90 seconds, 2 minutes. Andrew, you want to kick it off, and, you know, what's the major takeaways of this exercise that you all, you know, started on, and maybe some key findings from the report? What do you want the industry to really learn from all of this?
That these two people, Elizabeth and Marzia, did an amazing job and love this industry, and that love is expressed through that report, because that report helps to find a lot of information for people to use in the industry and for doing their work.
This paper has, for me, it's challenged our faith in numbers. I actually want to encourage people to lean into the context in the gray area. The cotton industry is a perfect example of an industry that cannot be summed up by a single shocking statistic. It is an industry that covers 75 countries and over 22 million farmers. So my call to action, and what I really learned, was let's tell better, more nuanced stories. Stop gravitating towards that single shocking statistic, because I think that we get ourselves into trouble when we start to look for a single number that simplifies the world around us. And I think that it tells a much less interesting story, not to mention a misleading story, compared to the reality.
Yeah. And to add to your thoughts, as my final thoughts, Elizabeth, I would say that we need to move, as you said, beyond that shocking statistic that tells you maybe the water use or the pesticide use with one number, and ask deeper question and move towards understanding the impact of that water use, the impact of those pesticides. And really, I think media and advocacy have the power to ask deeper question and really change the industry for good if they lean into that gray area. And I would encourage everybody to do that. So yeah.
I guess my final takeaway is, as someone who gets inundated with reports and white papers and studies all day long at Sourcing Journal and Rivet, a lot of them are propaganda or just a big marketing case, or, you know, so a call to action to purchase something. This was actually very, very well done. And I'm not saying that because I was invited here. I did read the entire report before I was asked to moderate this. And obviously, I wouldn't want to get behind something unless I truly believed in it, because it's also our reputation as a publication at stake. And so I would encourage everyone, especially today, as sustainability becomes more and more important and part of everyone's supply chain and business moving forward, to take the time to read this and share it with your staff and friends and colleagues. Again, visit www.transformersfoundations.org, and you'll find the ability to download it there. I would like to thank everyone again for inviting me, taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie.